Hey there besties! Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're continuing our recap of the manhwa, Kill the Villainess. If you're new to this series, check the description below for links to previous episodes. Before we dive in, I just want to give a quick shout out to all our supporters. If you're enjoying the content and want to help keep the channel going, consider buying me a coffee. There's a link in the description below. Every little bit helps, and I appreciate all your love and support. Lastly, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy the video. It really helps our channel grow. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. Eris felt suffocated by the servants' excessive attention, as if they feared she might starve. They insisted on feeding her, their smiles unwavering. Quickly now, it's better while it's warm. Just open your mouth, we'll take care of the rest. For dessert, we have your favorite cherry pudding, Emma chirped. Eris, drained and not in the mood for any of it, simply opened her mouth without protest, her eyes distant. She longed for rest, not this forced cheerfulness. The recent uproar at the imperial palace had spread like wildfire among high society, drawing merchants eager to sell her jewelry. They probably celebrated the spectacle of her being slapped by the crown prince, Eris thought bitterly, barely paying attention to the maids gossiping nearby. Why is Lady Eris so quiet? Normally, she'd be storming to His Majesty, demanding justice. Another whispered, maybe she's unwell? She hasn't been eating much lately. Eris scoffed inwardly. Why would I go to Helena? If I wanted revenge, I'd be dealing with the crown prince. As tempting as that was, she dismissed the thought. Her mind briefly flickered to Lord Mazzillion's cold gaze from the previous night's dinner, but she shook it off. I'll take all the jewelry I saw today. Go get the payment from downstairs, she told the merchants, who thanked her profusely, showering her with compliments. As she walked away with her maids, Eris found herself pondering the recent pat on the back from the Marquis. Why did it remind me of family? Was it because his hand was the same size as my father's? The thought of her real family felt oddly distant. Their relationship had never been warm, but it wasn't entirely bad either. She hated almost every aspect of her family. Before her current life, in the real world, she had been nothing more than a supermarket sales rep. Money was always tight, and her dreams had long since withered under the weight of her parents' indifference. They had high expectations but never showed the slightest interest in her life, instead showering all their attention on her brother. She had grown to resent them, feeling invisible and unfairly burdened by their silent neglect. Eris lay in bed, her thoughts drifting back to her past life. I always thought I could see them again whenever I wanted. Maybe that's why I acted so indifferent, because I knew my parents would always wait for me, she mused. Her gaze softened with regret as memories of her brother surfaced. He always behaved so sweetly with our parents. He even took care of most of the household chores, she reflected, her emotions stirring. If I could see them again, I'd try to be more affectionate, she thought, her sadness lulling her to sleep. The next morning, she was abruptly woken by Emma's excited voice. You must head to the Imperial Palace quickly. The outfits for you and His Highness for the knight ordination ceremony are ready. I can't wait to see what color it will be. Eris listened in silence, her mind elsewhere. Since the knight ordination ceremony was treated as an important event, of course, they'd call for me. I'm the crown prince's fiancé after all, she thought bitterly. The memory of his slap still stung, but there had been no punishment, no apology. Nothing. Why would there be? She thought, her fists clenching as she was escorted into the carriage. Enjoy the trip, my lady. Her maids called out, waving cheerfully as the carriage departed. Eris stared out the window, feeling trapped. Is this what a cow being led to slaughter feels like? She wondered, watching the bustling streets outside. The weather was beautiful, and the people looked happy. Why am I the only one who has to endure this? She fumed. What did I do to deserve this? To gift clothes to the man who slapped me? Stop, Eris commanded suddenly. The coachman, startled, peeked back through the window. What? He asked, confused. Stop the carriage immediately. Eris shouted, her frustration boiling over. The carriage jolted to a halt, and without hesitation, she threw open the door and bolted. My lady. Her guard cried out in shock as she disappeared into an alley. Eris ran, her heart pounding. I have to lose them, she thought, ducking around a corner and pressing herself into a hidden nook. Maybe I could hide forever. If I ran far enough, would this world finally give up on me? She closed her eyes, her chest heaving with desperation. Maybe I could go home. Please, let me go. Helena is the one they need, not me. There she is. Grab her. A knight's voice rang out, and Eris' eyes snapped open in panic. No. I can't let them take me back, she thought frantically, kicking off her shoe as she darted deeper into the alley. I won't go back. Not to the palace, not to him. I need to find somewhere to hide, Eris thought, her heart racing as she ran deeper into the alley. Her face was tense with urgency. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her arm, causing her to flinch. Who is that? She wondered, turning sharply to see a boy standing beside her. He pressed a finger to his lips, signaling her to stay quiet. Do you want to escape? He asked in a calm, quiet voice. Huh? Eris blinked, confused. I'm asking if you want to hide, he repeated, a little impatient. Yes, I want to escape, she replied, nodding. There was no hesitation in her voice this time. The boy grinned and whistled loudly, signaling to the children nearby. They rushed out, playing noisily in the alley, blocking the path of the knights searching for her. My friends will distract them. Come with me, he said, taking her hand. Hurry. Eris followed him, her feet stumbling from exhaustion. Get in here. He urged, guiding her into a small house. She collapsed against the wall, catching her breath as the boy locked the door behind them. He let out a sigh of relief before turning to her with a mischievous smile. Now, about my payment. Did you see how many kids showed up? Don't think you can get away with handing me just some sweets. Payment, Eris echoed, looking confused. Don't tell me you don't have any money. He groaned, exasperated. I don't have my purse, Eris realized with a sinking feeling, her hands patting the empty pockets. Seeing the disappointment on his face, she quickly undid her earrings. Take these. Even if you're accused of theft later, that's none of my concern. Use them wisely, she said, handing them to him. His eyes sparkled with joy as he grabbed the earrings. Of course, my lady. This is what we do best, he said with a grin. But before they could relax, the sound of footsteps approaching the house startled them both. Knights, have they already found me? Eris thought, her heart pounding in her chest. You have to hide. Quick. The boy urged, pushing her toward the back of the room. Where? She muttered, her voice shaky. Without a word, he guided her into a cupboard. Stay quiet, don't make a sound, he whispered, gently closing the door behind her. Eris crouched inside, her body tense. You're back early today, the boy said, his voice casual as the door creaked open. It's not the knights, Eris realized, peeking through a crack. But she stayed hidden, waiting to see who had entered. Nothing bad happened, right? The boy asked the visitor with a slight giggle. Eris, still hiding, observed the newcomer. Are they blood-related siblings? She wondered, noting his unremarkable appearance. He seems like a typical side character, she thought. Who's there? The man asked abruptly, his tone shifting. He didn't seem amused by the boy's laughter. Huh? The boy stiffened, suddenly nervous. Who did you bring back? The man demanded, his suspicion growing. How could I have brought anyone here? Seriously, to this dusty old house? The boy tried to deny it, his voice shaky. But the man, not convinced, turned and headed toward the wardrobe where Eris was hiding. He's coming this way. Please, just leave. Eris thought desperately, covering her mouth to muffle any sound. Brother, wait. The boy pleaded, trying to stop him, but it was too late. The wardrobe door swung open, and there was a brief silence. Please come out, the man said, his voice firm but calm. Eris muttered under her breath and stepped out of the cramped space, her gaze steady, showing no fear. The man turned to his younger brother, his palm outstretched. Why? The boy asked, clearly panicking. Without a word, the man took the earrings from his brother's hand and returned them to Eris. Please, take these back. Don't give them back. I earned them after I saved her. The boy cried out, desperate. It's true, Eris said, her voice level. He saved me, so I gave him the earrings as a reward. They weren't stolen. I know, the man responded, his tone calm as he stepped toward his brother. But you know nothing good comes from getting mixed up with nobles. But, the boy began to protest, but his brother cut him off. Don't resist. Even if there's a reason, you can't accept something so valuable. He rubbed the boy's head gently but firmly, reinforcing his point. Eris looked at the earrings in her hand briefly before tossing them back to the man, who caught them easily. It would cause me more trouble if you didn't accept them, she said. Consider it payment not just for helping me, but for keeping quiet about it. Although you don't know who I am, even if you find out later, I expect you to keep your mouth shut, Eris said sternly, her gaze sharp as the brothers watched her in silence. This encounter could work to my advantage, she thought. Since I need to find that priest, Matthias, as Jason mentioned, this saves me some effort. Additionally, I'd like a recommendation for a trustworthy information guild, she added, her tone unwavering. I know of one. The younger boy said excitedly, but his brother cut him off sharply. Be quiet. The boy fell silent, his eyes still fixed on Eris. He would be troubled if this escalated. In this world, commoners have nothing to gain from getting involved with nobles, Eris mused to herself. My lady, the older brother spoke respectfully, please accept my sincerest apologies for this child's ignorance. However, we can't provide you with what you want. We're poor and of no use to you. So please, leave this house and think of us as nothing more than pitiful. He bowed slightly, his tone polite yet firm. He's clever, Eris thought, watching his calm demeanor. As expected, I like him. If I leave now, my family will assume you've kidnapped me, she said, sitting down on the bed. It won't just be the two of you. Every child from the village who helped me will face questioning. Is that what you want? But if you listen to my request, I can make it look like you saved me from danger. What will you choose? The boy tugged on his brother's sleeve nervously. No matter how I see it, there's only one choice, the older brother sighed. I need a skilled information guild that knows how to keep secrets. The latter is non-negotiable, Eris said firmly. Father Senshi from the back alleys is an information trader. He's trustworthy, the younger boy quickly offered. Good, she said. Tell him to find Priest Matthias. And what about the commission money? He asked. Are you so confident in him that you're asking for payment up front? If you can't find Matthias, things will get complicated, she replied, her tone firm. The boy nodded, though his face betrayed concern. It seems like you're dissatisfied, she noted. Did you choose us on purpose? The older brother asked. Hardly, Eris replied coolly. Do I look like I'd waste time finding you, people I didn't even know existed? I was being chased, she tells him. Nobles don't give orders to random strangers they've just met. No matter how much you stress keeping things a secret, it's not surprising if word gets out, the older brother countered, catching her off guard. He's more perceptive than I thought, Eris mused, stepping closer to him. Do you think I'm suspicious? She demanded, her eyes locked onto his. Despite her proximity, he didn't flinch, his cold gaze steady. Even with my face right in front of him, he hasn't moved, Eris thought. If I wanted, I could have you all wiped out within half a day, she said, her voice dangerously low. Do you really think a person would be afraid of a mouse threatening to bite? They'd just kill the mouse and make sure its words are forgotten. Do you disagree? Her cold words hung in the air, her threat clear. This man knows the truth, Eris thought, glancing at the boy who had helped her. He clung to his brother's arm, trembling slightly. He's trying so hard to protect him, to get between us. It seems like you're scared, Eris said gently, patting the boy's head. Don't worry. As long as you keep this secret, no one will get hurt. Her smile didn't soothe the older brother. Your kind doesn't see us as human, he said quietly. You see, I'm different from other aristocrats, she replied, her tone light but hiding something darker. The truth is, she thought inwardly, I don't see them as real. This world, these people, they're nothing but fictional characters in a novel. What I truly care about, the things I treasure, my family, my friends, the music I loved, the places I once knew, all exist in the world I left behind. To get back to that, I'm prepared to die. I can't afford to feel sympathy for fictional beings. Now, escort me back, she instructed. As she made her way to the door, the man noticed her bare feet. Without a word, he knelt, taking off his own shoes and putting them on her, surprising Eris. "You don't seem to have another pair," she said, puzzled. "If you give me these, what will you wear?" "Even so, I can't let a lady walk around barefoot," he replied, carefully fastening the shoes on her feet. "Please come out when you're ready," he said, stepping out of the room. Eris stood still for a moment. "I don't want to leave yet," she admitted to herself. "But staying in this house wouldn't buy her more than a day. I have to go back. I've already resigned myself to death, so what's a slap from the crown prince? Why am I hiding? Wouldn't it be better if I just had the crown prince killed?" As she stepped out of the house and into the alley, her thoughts grew sharper. What would happen if the male lead of this world, the one that keeps me bound by its rules, died? I wonder how this world would react. The prospect of that chaos stirred something deep inside her. That's something to look forward to, she thought. "What is this?" Eris asked, her gaze sharp as she noticed the staff waiting for her outside. "Where were you this whole time?" the chief maid asked, her voice polite but tinged with concern. "I needed some fresh air, so I went out alone," Eris responded coolly. "But, my lady, you shook off the escort knights," the maid continued, worried. "I'm back safely, so it's fine, isn't it? I'm tired. I want to rest," Eris dismissed her, walking past without further explanation. The chief maid sighed. "Emma, prepare the bath," she instructed, watching Eris go. Soon, Eris was soaking in the tub, the quiet giving her time to think. "I need to meet Hybris as soon as possible. I must gather more information about this world." Her thoughts drifted to their first meeting. "It's a little awkward to admit I lied about not being from here. But maybe I can say it was because there were too many people. Surely a merciful high priest wouldn't turn away a young lamb in trouble? I'll have to visit the imperial palace again to see him." The next day, Eris returned to the imperial palace, noticing an increased number of knights stationed around. "They must have added more guards. Afraid I'll try to escape again," she mused. "His Majesty is absent for an inspection, so His Highness is handling duties in his place," the butler informed her with a bow. "Shall we proceed to try on the dress, Lady Mazzillion?" Eris remained calm despite the unexpected absence. "A shame I misremembered the date," she said, her expression unreadable. "Lucky that I slipped away yesterday," she thought privately. Inside the palace, Eris tried on the dress for the knighting ceremony. His Highness is truly fortunate to have such a beautiful bride. "Is everything comfortable?" the seamstress asked with a smile. "It's fine," Eris replied, though her thoughts were elsewhere. "The hem is so delicate. It must be difficult for the servants to clean." She watched as the maids dressed her, silently wondering why she even cared. "The finished dress will be delivered to the Marquis' residence by dinner," the seamstress reassured her. "Good. Help me change," Eris said. "I'd like to take a walk around the palace." As the maids dressed her back in her usual attire, Eris felt the ache in her legs from running barefoot the day before. "It hurts more than I thought," she winced inwardly, gripping the railing as she descended the stairs. "How am I supposed to find Hybris in a place this vast?" she wondered, scanning the expansive grounds. If only he appeared as easily as the Crown Prince or Helena. Her thoughts were cut short as she spotted him in the distance. Could it really be him? "Wait," Eris called out, rushing toward Hybris. "He's too far. If I lose him now, there's no telling when I'll find him again." She lifted the hem of her dress, determined to catch up. In her haste, Eris tripped on a loose stone, falling face first onto the ground. The noise caught Hybris's attention, and he turned to see her. "Are you all right?" he asked, walking over. "Do I look all right to you?" Eris snapped, wincing as she held her injured heel. Hybris regarded her for a moment, his expression calm despite her sharp words. Helena would never have to deal with this kind of thing. Everyone would come to her instead of her chasing after them, Eris thought bitterly, turning her face away. "My apologies for the discourtesy," Hybris said quietly. Kneeling beside her, he touched her injured leg, and a soft glow emanated from his hand. "So this is holy power. How fascinating," Eris mused, watching in awe as her pain vanished. "It's done. You'll be fine now," he said, standing once the healing was complete. "Huh?" She blinked, still processing what had happened. "Farewell," Hybris said, turning to leave. "No," she screamed internally, her hand shooting out to grab the edge of his robe. Hybris paused, his attention drawn back to her. "Have you seen me before? Back then, you asked me who I was, right?" Eris demanded, her voice unsteady. "Yes, I did," Hybris replied, offering his hand to help her stand. His gaze lingered on her, intense and unwavering. "He's not looking at me because I'm beautiful. It feels like he's seeing something beyond my appearance," she thought, her heart pounding. She quickly released his hand, her eyes flickering away in discomfort. "Who do I look like?" she asked, her voice quieter this time. "I cannot see the shape of one's soul. But I can see its color," Hybris replied. "In this world, no one else has the same color as you." I wanted to believe I was mistaken, but I wasn't. Eris felt her chest tighten at his words. "I didn't have time to think back then, so I couldn't be honest with you," she said, swallowing her nerves. "Yes. As you can see, I come from a different world. Will I be able to return to my original world? Please, tell me for certain. Is there any way?" Eris demanded, her voice tense, eyes fixed on Hybris. He hesitated, his expression softening. "It's difficult for me to give you an answer," he said quietly. "But from what I know, no outsider has ever returned alive." Eris felt her heart sink, her mind reeling. "I was so sure that dying would be my way out," she thought, her gaze distant and her body still. After a moment, she let out a small, bitter laugh. Hybris watched her silently. "There must be a way. Like a portal or something. Think." Her voice sharpened, her frustration mounting. "If there's no way for me to return, how did I enter this world in the first place?" She looked at him with wide, desperate eyes. "Right? There must be a way, and you just don't know how." "My lady," Hybris began, tension clear in his voice, but Eris interrupted him. "Please, help me find it. You're the high priest. You could look for relevant information in the temple, right?" she urged. "My lady," Hybris said more firmly, gripping her arms. "Please, listen to me." Eris froze under his gaze. "If you're not from this world, it means the soul that was originally in this body has already disappeared," he said gravely. Eris's eyes widened. "What?" she whispered, stunned. "You were able to enter this world because the soul that belonged to this body had already died. That's the law of life. If you want to return to your original world, you'd need to eliminate the soul tied to your original body," Hybris explained. "Kill the soul?" she stammered, barely able to process his words. Hybris nodded. "But your body in that other world is likely just an empty shell now. There's no soul left in your original body to die in your place. So, there's no way for you to return. That's why." He released her gently. "Please, accept your fate and live this life in her stead." "Accept? Leave her life?" Eris's thoughts darkened. To be able to say that to me, does he have any idea what kind of life Eris had? She clenched her fists, her mind racing. From the start, she had nothing. How many more times will I have to endure attacks before this ends? Will it ever end? She looked at Hybris with defiance. "If I have to accept someone else's fate, I'd rather go on adventures with a sorceress than be the crown prince's fiancé." "No," she said flatly. Hybris blinked, unsure. "What?" "I don't care if that's the law of life. I will go back, even if it means not going back alive," Eris said, turning away. "My lady, you can't. Please, treasure the life God has given you," Hybris pleaded, his voice tinged with fear. "God?" Eris's tone was cold. "My life wasn't given by God, but by my parents. And unless you were conceived by the Holy Spirit, yours was too. So, I hope God blesses you," she added, stepping away. "I'll do as I please. Besides, he can't accuse me of blasphemy. I don't even belong to this world. At least, not the Hybris I know." She walked off, feeling nothing but emptiness after their encounter. "I've gained nothing. Only despair." The weight of exhaustion pressed down on her. "I'm so tired I could die." As she walked, Eris noticed Helena standing in front of her. She shot her a cold look. Why is she here? She wondered, deciding to ignore her and walk past. "Hey," Helena called out, grabbing her hand. "What is it?" Eris asked, her voice edged with annoyance. Helena's expression softened, sadness evident in her eyes. "Lady Medea, I would like to ask for your forgiveness." "What do you mean?" Eris asked, raising an eyebrow. "For His Highness. For when he slapped you," Helena explained, her voice trembling. Eris looked at her coolly. "Did you slap me?" "No, so there's no need for you to apologize." "Even so," Helena started, but Eris cut her off. "You shouldn't feel guilty either." She made a move to withdraw her hand. "Now, if you'll excuse me." Helena held on tightly. "It's all right if you don't forgive me, Lady Medea. Even though I didn't slap you, I'm still guilty of letting it happen. That day, I should have stopped His Highness from raising his hand against you, and I should have corrected my maid's misunderstanding right away. Instead, I just stood by and watched. It's my fault. Please forgive me." Helena's grip didn't loosen, and her sincerity hung in the air. "Righteous. Charming," Eris thought as she watched Helena. "If only you were a villainess pretending to be nice, I could dislike you without hesitation." She glanced down at Helena's hands, which were still holding hers. "How can they be so smooth and pretty?" "Huh?" Helena blinked, clearly confused. "You're an imperial palace maid. So, how are your hands prettier than most noble ladies?" Eris asked, catching Helena off guard. Eris mused silently. Helena doesn't do chores. No washing dishes, no laundry, no cleaning. She's always busy because everyone loves her, always being called over to chat. Helena reminded her of a classmate from university. Someone who was kind, beautiful, and universally liked. I liked her too, Eris thought, but I couldn't get close. She was nice, but she didn't understand hardship. Not knowing hardship was her privilege, allowing her to be so naive. Helena's voice pulled her back to the present. "Lady Medea," she asked, her tone soft. "I dislike people like you," Eris said flatly, pulling her hand away. "Someone else is doing Helena's work for her, even though she's an imperial maid." That wasn't the real reason Eris disliked her, but it didn't matter. "There's no need for you to apologize. I plan to keep disliking you," she said coldly, turning to leave. "After I came to this world and became an aristocrat, I realized something. I just have a bad personality," Eris thought as she walked away, leaving Helena standing there. "As someone who's never disliked anyone before, you're free to hate me as much as you want, Helena," she said inwardly. The day of the knighting ceremony arrived. At the Medea manor, the maids were struggling to dress Eris, who resisted as Emma tightly laced up her corset. "I'm already so thin without this corset," Eris thought, exhaustion written on her face. "I'll have to convince them to skip it next time." "You're really beautiful, my lady," the maids gushed once they were finished. Eris, however, barely glanced at herself. Instead, her eyes landed on the new carriage outside. The palace sent it. "Today is the knighting ceremony," she remembered. "The Marquis told me to appoint a knight, but I've already decided to die. I don't want to ruin someone else's life." If she appointed a knight and something happened to her, the blame would fall on them for failing to protect her. A ceremony for knights to pledge their lives to noble ladies. "I'll just watch and leave quickly," she thought as the carriage gently rattled on its way to the palace. "It's a sunny morning, Your Highness," Eris greeted Prince Alec as he arrived, his expression clearly showing he'd been forced to be there. He'd never show up this early by choice. The Emperor must have sent him, she thought, noticing his frown and ignoring the whispers around them. "I really don't want to start my day by holding this rascal's hand." Reluctantly, she extended her hand toward him. Prince Alec, still frowning, looked as annoyed as ever. People say it's easy to forgive someone handsome, but that doesn't apply to him, Eris thought while maintaining a forced smile. "Your Highness? Do you want to keep standing here?" she asked calmly. After a moment, he grabbed her hand roughly and began walking, practically pulling her along. He's doing this on purpose, she thought, yanking her hand away. Alec stopped, turning to face her coldly. "Your Highness, no matter how much you dislike holding hands with me, you shouldn't act like this," she said, her voice sharp. To her shock, Alec picked her up, carrying her in his arms. "Is he crazy?" she thought as the murmurs around them grew louder. What insolence is this? She snapped. Insolence, he shot back, his voice icy. When you're the one always scheming, so I'll hold you. It's not like that. Can you please let me down? She asked, though inwardly she wanted to tear his hair out. No. Since you're engaged to the imperial family, let's head in like this, Alex said, clearly enjoying her discomfort. If I struggle, we'll both look ridiculous, she tells him. His Majesty has ordered me to look after you personally, didn't he? Because of whatever you said to him, Alec replied coldly. Why do you say that like it's my fault? She retorted. Judging by your reaction, it must be, he said, still carrying her. He's twisting everything to blame me. His father must have really scolded him, Eris thought, before pinching his neck sharply. He released her in surprise, causing her to fall to the ground. Your Highness, if you were tired, you should have said something. No need to overexert yourself on my behalf. Forgive me for not noticing. After all, I'm so skinny, she said sarcastically, drawing a few gasps from the bystanders. What? Alec asked, his face flushing with embarrassment. Where are the servants? Why hasn't anyone brought a parasol yet? She demanded. Will you take responsibility if His Highness faints on such an important day? A maid quickly appeared, opening an umbrella to shield them from the sun. Should I keep pushing him now that I've come this far? Eris wondered. Your Highness, have you come to your senses a bit? She asked, watching him with a smirk as he looked utterly perplexed. Smile, Your Highness. His Majesty ordered you to personally take care of me, Eris said lightly, taking Prince Alec's arm. My lady, you're crossing the line just because His Majesty overindulges you, he replied coldly. Then please, appeal to him. If you'd rather be engaged to Helena Antebellum, go and beg to break off this arrangement with my wicked, treacherous self, she smiled. Shall I kneel and beg with you? He fell silent, faint anger visible beneath his calm expression. He never speaks up to his father. Why does he always vent his frustration on me? She thought. A maid interrupted. I apologize, but the pre-ceremony festivity is about to begin. Oh my, we might be late. Shall we go? Eris asked with a smile, her arm still linked with his. Don't think you'll stay in His Majesty's favor forever. You have a knack for losing even the smallest affection, Alex said coldly as they walked together. Do you mean to say you have affection for me to lose? She asked. How strange. They arrived at the event, and Eris took her seat, though the festivity had barely started. I think I'm going to be sick. I need to leave for a moment, she thought, rising from her chair. Stepping outside, Eris felt the tightness of her corset making her nausea worse. This corset is killing me. Dealing with the imperial family on top of it is unbearable. Is there anywhere I can sit for a moment? She steadied herself against a wall, then froze at the sound of a struggle nearby. What's that noise? She followed the sound and quietly moved past a bush behind the building. Ahead, she saw knights beating a man, his figure slumped and covered in cloth. Lazy fool, one knight sneered. He's lying there like a slug. Stand up, you bum. Another knight yelled, kicking him. It's fine to beat illegitimate children who don't know their place. That man must be a commoner trying to become a knight, Eris thought, quickly piecing together the scene. In the Empire, there were two ways to raise one's status, becoming a knight or mastering magitech. Helena's rise followed a similar path, after her family was exonerated and restored to nobility. This man, though, if his clothes get dirty, they'll question him about what happened. They've likely been tormenting him for some time, she observed. Even if I help now, they'll only punish him more later. I could intervene if I wanted to, but honestly, it's too much trouble. Hey, stand him up. One of the men shouted, pulling the cloth off the man's face. Eris froze. It's him, she realized, recognizing the bruised man as the young man who had saved her. He shifted slightly, his battered face turning in her direction. He saw me. Do I have to help him? Eris hesitated, weighing her options. What if it's useless? She wondered. He might think it's just cheap pity from a noble, that I'm being arrogant. The girl who once threatened him now trying to save him while he's being harassed. What hypocrisy. The idea of offering charity seemed more insulting than doing nothing. Fine, she decided, walking away, ignoring the silent plea in his eyes. Besides, my contract is with the kid, not with him, she thought. Soon, the knight ordination ceremony began. The noblemen eagerly eyed the potential knights, hoping to form alliances through the appointment of those from noble birth. Everyone seemed anxious that their chosen knight might be selected by someone else. Eris, however, felt no interest in appointing a knight and yielded her turn, boredom creeping in. Her gaze drifted to a group of older men standing nearby. What's this? She thought. These people look older than the others. They are knights whose ordination has been postponed. Her guard leaned over to explain. What if their ordination continues to be postponed? She asked. The first time could be bad luck, but if it keeps happening, people will start to suspect other reasons. Over time, their age and stamina will work against them. If 10 years pass, they'll likely give up on becoming knights and become mercenaries instead, he explained. Even if a mercenary earns more, it's not the same. If someone dreams of honor, that's a bitter end, she mused, her eyes wandering back to the man she had seen earlier among the waiting knights. What if he becomes a mercenary? Would his demand increase as a mercenary? She asked. Wealthy commoners prefer knights of impeccable origin over mercenaries with uncertain backgrounds. But if he comes from a poor noble family, his value will rise, especially if he marries into a wealthy commoner's family or they strike a deal with another noble house, her guard informed her. For nobles who value class above all else, that would be an appalling future, Eris thought. I apologize for what I said about romance and the like, he had said. Don't think too much about it, Eris replied dismissively. Thank you for your generosity, my lady, he smiled faintly. But if I may say it again, if there's no reason to be afraid, you should appoint him as a knight. Eris glanced down as her guard knelt beside her. My lady's decision could be a saving grace for someone. Even if you were later to dismiss the knight, he would easily be chosen by another, he said calmly. So? She asked, feeling awkward. They've trained for half their lives to become knights. Wouldn't it be a shame if their passion faded without ever getting a chance? He continued. You're begging for my mercy then? She replied. Yes, please have mercy, he pleaded. To save someone means taking responsibility for them, she thought as she rose, stepping toward the podium. More so when saving a person, not a stray beast from the streets. She surveyed the knights before her, then pointed to the young man she had seen earlier. I shall appoint that knight, she declared. His eyes lit up with hope as he stepped forward and knelt before her. A man stood beside them, holding a ceremonial sword. Will you swear before God to pledge an oath of obedience and loyalty to me, Lady Eris Mazzillion? She asked. Even if that path is filled with suffering and hardship, I will gladly follow. No temptations shall force me to submit, he replied, raising his gaze to meet hers. I don't believe I've saved him by doing this, Eris thought as she placed the blade on his back, knighting him. Even if I hadn't chosen him, he would have waited years for another chance. But I owe him a debt, a small kindness repaid. What is your name, sir? She asked. While it may be embarrassing, I do not have a name, he said, his head lowered. I'm not skilled at naming people, she thought, pausing. Anakin, I shall call you Anakin, she declared, placing her hand on his head. Suddenly, Eris remembered a passage from the novel she had long forgotten. Beside Eris, hated by all, there was one person, a black knight who loved her until the end. At an event where all imperial family members participated, there was no way for the crown prince's fiancée to leave without greeting them. I just want to go home, she thought, but approached them nonetheless. It's a sunny afternoon, Emperor. And to you as well, Empress, she greeted. Oh, Eris. Your beauty dazzles as always. The purple of the imperial palace suits you, the Emperor smiled. It is thanks to the palace for sending such a beautifully hand-sewn dress, she said, bowing. Such humility, he chuckled. I heard you weren't planning to appoint a knight. What made you change your mind? He asked. When everyone is trying to convince me, is there any reason to go against the tide? Eris replied with a smile. You have made a wise decision, the Emperor remarked with a smile. As I thought, the Empress and Crown Prince find me unpleasant, Eris mused, noting their cold expressions. This is your chance, Your Highness. Hurry and petition to break our engagement, she urged inwardly, glancing at Prince Alec. But he avoided her gaze, sipping his wine with a tense look. Why you? You understand my intentions, yet you ignore them. I can never understand this man, she thought. Would it be all right if I excused myself? I am quite worn out after preparing since dawn, she requested, bowing slightly. It seems I have kept you. Take care of yourself, the Emperor replied. Thank you for your understanding, she said before leaving. Once outside the palace, Eris winced at the pain in her feet. First things first, I need to get these heels off the moment I'm in the carriage. My feet are about to break, she thought. Just then, a familiar voice caught her attention. What are you saying, Helena? Please. It was Jason, standing with Helena. Jason and Helena? Eris thought, narrowing her eyes at the scene before her. Ah, this event. It wasn't the ordination that was important, but this, where Jason pledges himself to Helena, she thought, remembering this scene from the novel. Jason, a knight's pledge can only be done once. So why choose me? Helena asked, looking confused. I want to choose you, Helena, since it can only be done once, Jason responded, unsheathing his sword and kneeling before her. I, Jason Kajar, swear before God an oath of obedience and loyalty to Helena Antebellum. Even if that path is marked by suffering and hardship, I will gladly follow. No temptation shall force me to submit, he declared, offering her his sword. Jason. Helena whispered, looking tense. Helena, I wish to protect you until the end. Please allow me to do so, he pleaded. It's a tear-jerking scene of pure love. If only the Crown Prince weren't watching, it would be perfect, Eris thought, glancing at Prince Alec, who stood watching as Helena placed her hand on Jason's head. This must be hard for you, seeing the woman you love receive a confession from your friend under the guise of an ordainment, she mused with a smirk. Can a childhood friend truly swear to protect you with a pure heart? If it were a ring instead of a sword, this would be no different from a marriage vow. Helena is so kind, but so oblivious to the ways of the world. Drawing closer, Eris caught their attention. I'm sorry. Am I in your way, Sir Kajar? She asked with a smile. Am I in your way, Sir Kajar? Eris asked cheerfully. No, Jason replied calmly. Lady Antebellum, it seems Her Majesty is looking for you, Eris added. It's that late already? Thank you for telling me, Lady Mazzillion. Bye, Jason. Helena exclaimed, quickly excusing herself and running off. And now the prince is chasing after her, Eris thought as she watched Prince Alec hurry after Helena. If I hadn't interfered, this tiresome love triangle wouldn't have happened. She turned her attention to Jason. Sir Kajar, it would be wise to be more mindful of your surroundings next time, she remarked. What do you mean? Jason asked, almost smiling. Wait, isn't Jason a master swordsman? Eris thought, her expression shifting in realization. He knew we were here the whole time. He orchestrated this, fully aware that the prince and I were watching. Your expression says you don't understand, Lady Mazzillion, Jason said, reaching out to play with her hair. Where are you touching? Eris thought with disgust, slapping his hand away. Last time, I warned you not to resent them. But it seems you misunderstood. That wasn't advice, Lady Mazzillion. It was a warning, he said, his tone hardening. A warning, huh? Eris replied awkwardly. He must think I got slapped because I tormented Helena that day, she realized. Given how Eris mistreated Helena in the original novel, Jason's disdain made sense. But if he hates me so much, why doesn't he just end it? Then go ahead, stab me, Eris said coldly. You're holding a sword, aren't you? You can use it. What? Jason looked startled, flinching slightly as Eris lunged for his sword. He dropped it quickly, grabbing her hands instead. Their eyes locked in a tense moment. If you're going to give warnings, you should be prepared to kill your opponent, she said icily. Jason's eyes widened. Who are you? He asked, visibly shaken. Who are you? What an interesting question, Eris responded awkwardly, brushing past him. I thought you had no interest in me, Sir Kajar, she added, walking away. Eris entered her carriage with Anakin as they began their journey home. Just as Jason doesn't really know me, I don't know much about the Black Knight, she thought, glancing at him gently. In the novel, his name was never mentioned. He was always the one in the shadows, his face never described. He was the only one who stood by Eris, who came to love her. But now, the Black Knight had met her, not the original Eris. What if he doesn't fall in love with me because I'm not her? She wondered, looking out the window. I can't ignore the chance that I might be betrayed. My head hurts, Eris thought, closing her eyes. Why me? Anakin's voice broke through her thoughts, drawing her attention. Did you have someone else in mind? She asked, slightly amused. There was no way I could choose. But you had a choice, Anakin said, his tone steady. I don't believe that you, the daughter of Marquis Mazzillion and fiancée of the Crown Prince, would have chosen me out of pure intentions. I can't imagine this man falling in love with Eris, she thought, casting him a knowing glance. You're correct, she finally said. I don't know what the knights said while I was gone, but forget it. They probably said I was kind-hearted, that I saved him, Eris reflected, remembering her father's advice on selecting a knight. But I didn't choose him for such noble reasons. Just give your life to me, she told him quietly. When they arrived at the Mazzillion manor, Anakin helped Eris down from the carriage. Because I know your weakness, you can't resist me. I know I can keep you on a tight leash. That's why I chose you, she thought, feeling a pang of guilt. In her room, Eris dropped onto her bed with a sigh. It's been a long day, she muttered wearily. Huh? What's this? She thought, noticing a mirror beside her. Why is there a mirror here? She lifted it, and the reflection stunned her. It was Medea's face staring back at her. My lady, what's wrong? Emma asked, alarmed by Eris's expression. Eris quickly hid the mirror. Oh, it's nothing. I just saw a bug, she said, forcing a calm tone. Shall I catch it for you? Emma offered. It's all right. You can go now, Eris replied, waving her away. Once Emma left, she turned back to the mirror. You startled me. How? She wondered, staring tensely at Medea's face. You've been quite busy, haven't you? Medea asked with a slight smile. Now that I think about it, she did say to keep this mirror close by, Eris remembered. Have you figured something out? She asked Medea. My sisters said that you can't break the law of causality with a human body, Medea explained. A human body? Eris asked, perplexed. You need to pay a high cost to break it. A human life alone is too cheap. At the very least, the heart of a dragon, the mother of nature, must be sacrificed to balance the scales, Medea told her. That's similar to the story Jason told me, Eris realized. Have you asked the Grand Temple if there's a way to leave this world? Medea asked. They said it's only possible if the soul from my world's body dies. But that body is just an empty shell right now, so it's theoretically impossible, Eris explained. Oh my, Medea said, sounding intrigued. But what about this? If you don't break the law of causality, there might still be a way to leave. The law of causality ensures that life fulfills the role assigned by the world, Medea explained. It's why a hero appears in times of chaos. One person is born to save the world, and another is born to live and die to motivate the hero. The world is a complex system, and if one part breaks, everything falls apart. The law of causality exists to prevent that, and breaking it comes at a high cost. What happens when the compulsion of the law of causality ends? Eris asked, her expression worried. One usually dies. Only then is death allowed, Medea answered. In other words, you can only die once you've fulfilled the duties set by the law. Eris placed the mirror on the table, her mind racing. My duty is to kill Helena. You know what you need to do, don't you? Medea asked, her voice calm yet piercing. If I kill Helena, I'll be executed. Even now, I'm still being forced to face my own death, Eris thought bitterly. If I don't break the law of causality, how can you help me? She asked. If a soul dies here, it's reincarnated in the same world it died in, Medea explained. Wait, are you saying I could be reincarnated here again? Eris asked, her eyes widening. Well, that's the law, Medea replied. But a sorceress can twist and break it. With a few sacrifices, I can return you to your original body once you finish your duty here, she tells Eris. What sacrifices do you need? Eris asked, tension creeping into her voice. Well, I haven't found them yet, Medea said with a smile. Is she joking with me? Eris thought, startled as she collapsed onto her bed. Don't be too disappointed. My sisters and I are searching diligently, Medea reassured her. But Hybris said no one has ever left this world alive, so even for a sorceress, it's not easy to figure out. Even so, wasn't the payment a bit small? Eris wondered. I'll get paid later, Medea replied. Later? Eris repeated, confused. Yes. Didn't you already drink the contract? Medea asked. A contract? I did. Eris looked puzzled, then suddenly remembered the strange potion she drank at Medea's place. Ah, that unidentified liquid, she realized, tensing. Of course. You shouldn't blindly drink what someone gives you, Medea teased. I don't even know the contents of the contract. Eris thought, alarmed. This isn't fair. She shouted. It's perfectly fair. I have your life in my hands, and you have mine in yours, Medea replied smoothly. I'll contact you again if I learn anything new. This time, try to keep the mirror with you. Got it, Eris muttered. Oh, and if something dangerous happens, look for a big mirror. Understood? Medea said with a smile before disappearing, leaving Eris alone once more. I'm exhausted from taking in too much information at once, Eris thought, sighing. Come to think of it, I haven't seen Anakin since I entered the residence. Has he been assigned to a room? She whispered his name softly, Anakin. You called for me? His sudden appearance startled her. Ah! You startled me. Eris exclaimed, eyes wide. How did he hear me? Was he listening to my conversation with Medea? She wondered, feeling tense. Would you allow me to enter? Anakin asked politely, standing still at the door. Huh? Sure, she replied. He stepped next to her bedside and knelt down. One of the greatest virtues of a knight is to not divulge the secrets of their master, he said quietly. So, you're saying you heard everything? Eris narrowed her eyes. How could he hear such a soft voice unless he's more than he seems? Are you a master swordsman? She inquired. Something similar, Anakin replied. If I'm right, then I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong? Eris thought, confused. What do you mean, similar? I can sense faint sounds, but my swordsmanship is incomplete. That is why I am not a master, Anakin explained. Right, so a half-master. You must have heard my conversation. What do you think? Eris asked cautiously, bracing herself. If this man accuses me of speaking with a sorceress, I'll have to decide whether to silence him or condemn him for talking nonsense. Master, you are not from this place, are you? He asked, his voice calm but certain. Eris paused, weighing her options. If I'm to keep him as a close aide, I have no other choice. That's right, she admitted, rising from her bed and walking toward the window. It's not Eris who isn't from here. It's me. Do you want to go back to where you used to live, Master? Anakin asked. I do, Eris replied quietly, staring out into the distance, her back to him. Can I help you with that? He offered, his tone steady, as if the idea of aiding her return didn't faze him at all. Why is he so calm? Shouldn't he be surprised that I'm an outsider? And I even broke a taboo by speaking with a sorceress, Eris thought as her eyes drifted toward him. You seem to doubt me. But even though I'm saying outrageous things, you don't think I'm crazy. When you live in the back alleys, Anakin began, it's normal to point fingers at the world and call it mad. I've lived that life so long that I can't tell what's sane anymore. A sane person wouldn't last there. They'd have to lose their mind to survive. Is he truly human? Eris wondered, walking closer. She placed her hand gently on his face. How warm, she murmured. It doesn't matter who my master is. My duty won't change, Anakin said calmly. What is your duty? She asked. Whatever you command, I will obey, he replied. If it's him, Eris thought, he won't let love distract him from his duty. Even if he falls for Helena, he'll stay loyal to me. She sat on her bed, reflecting. Are you disappointed that the knight you chose admits to being crazy? Anakin asked. No, I'm very happy about it, she said, smiling. The next morning, as she approached her carriage with Anakin, Eris thought to herself, I've opened my eyes to this world again, but today will be different. I'm going to Lout, she told him. Lout was the largest confectionery in the country. She dressed as a commoner to avoid attention, blending in effortlessly. You wanted to see me? Rita asked, settling into the confectionery across from Anakin's brother. Yes, he said. Go ahead, Rita urged. I found the priest you mentioned, he told her. Where is he? She asked, her eyes lighting up. Finally, a lead on Priest Methius, she thought with excitement. Thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure. If you enjoyed what you watched, please consider liking, subscribing, and ringing that notification bell. Your comments mean the world to us and help us improve. The next episode promises even more excitement and unexpected twists, so stay tuned as we embark on this thrilling journey together. Keep the anticipation alive, and we'll catch you in the next episode.